What is up, everybody? I am thrilled to say that it is time to kick off my favorite series that I do here on YouTube, and that is my NFL Deep Dives. Many of you have been waiting for this, but if you are new, this series is very simple. 32 episodes, each a deep dive into each NFL team, revealed in order of my preseason power rankings in descending order. So I am pumped to kick this thing off. Before we dive in though, please take a second to hit that like button down below. It's actually super helpful to me. If you enjoy this series or this episode, it is the easiest way to support this video and my channel. So without further ado, welcome into a deep dive into the dead last 32nd team in my 2020 NFL Power Rankings. It's got to be somebody, and this year it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. In this video, we'll do an intro for the team, we'll run through each position in depth, take a look at the schedule, this team's Vegas over/under, and then wrap up with my overall expectations for this team. And this is a very fascinating team to kick off with here after a really up and down 2019 that started with the inevitable failure of the Nick Foles signing, but also was highlighted by the surprising rookie breakout quarterback Gardner Minshew, who showed some real flashes and actual potential to help this team win some games in 2020, but honestly kind of holds the cards. And this is a really big year to see what kind of quarterback really is Gardner Minshew, or is this team going to be moving on from him after this year? And quite frankly, if it weren't for Minshew's breakout, combined with the appeal of a potential generational quarterback talent, Trevor Lawrence, in the upcoming NFL draft, we'd very likely be talking about a team here in Jacksonville who spent its offseason firing its coach, Doug Marrone, who's seemingly run his course here, unloading talent for the team and really entering a true rebuild for 2020. But this really is a team that's done a good job of balancing the prospects of competing now with the talent that they do have on the roster. You know, this team might rank 32nd, but I think they're far from, let's just say, compared to the 32nd teams in previous seasons, they're not this terrible team in a complete rebuild. I think they've really balanced the idea of trying to win now, but I also think the Jags have done a really good job of something that I feel not enough teams manage, and that is the self-awareness of where this team is and what might be necessary to become a more legitimate contender in years to come. While this team may not be quite ready in 2020, I would like to applaud what's been a bottom-tier organization for doing an excellent job kind of freezing off some of the warts that have really hurt this team for a while now. You know, moving on from Tom Coughlin in the front office to start, not overpaying loud, overrated players like Leonard Fournette, Yannick Ngakoue, clearing up cap space while not taking on bad veteran contracts, while also acquiring youth and draft capital for the future. This team's really done a good job to put themselves in a position to build up the organization, but they also haven't left this team void of talent that they might actually need to compete in 2020. So I think it's a really interesting team. Let's go ahead and take a deep dive into this roster, ranking each position, how they stack up with the rest of the league. While we do that, note you will be looking at my own custom Madden roster. I understand it's a video game, but it's a nice copyright-free graphic to use, and they are my own ratings. They accurately reflect how I perceive each player. So we are going to talk about the quarterback first, but I do need to mention the hiring of Jay Gruden, which I thought was one of the better hires of the entire offseason. And I know I only ranked them 25th for coach and culture. This team comes in 32nd overall. But that hiring alone does project some optimism for me. I don't want to say Minshew and Kirk Cousins are the same quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Gruden is a really creative play caller. He has experience, a good proven scheme, and is a guy that's going to be very comfortable building around a mid-round talent in Gardner Minshew. Very different players, but I actually think if this team just fired Doug Marrone and made Jay Gruden the head coach, it would actually be an upgrade. I think Gruden got a really bad hand from the Redskins organization, but he's a guy that I think really has a lot to kind of, I don't even want to say prove, but regain here. See this as a redemption project And hell, maybe the offense plays really well and the defense falls apart and Jay Gruden becomes the head coach next year. I don't know. I believe in Jay Gruden here. I know that ranking this team 25th for offensive coaching culture might not exactly resemble that. It's not just about the coach. There's other culture issues going on here that play into that ranking, but I do think it all starts there with Jay Gruden. But let's talk about Gardner Minshew. Minshew mania here. Going to rank 27th in the league, which certainly is not bad for a second-year, sixth-round pick who really took the league by storm. And what really stood out and surprised about Gardner Minshew that I don't think he showed at Washington State is the playmaking, the ability to sense pressure, the athleticism, and know-how to extend plays and really make plays when the play broke down. And that was really impressive for Gardner Minshew. And some of that stuff really boosts the floor for Gardner Minshew and gives you some excitement that you don't normally have for a quote-unquote backup type. Guys like Mike Glennon sitting behind him, who just doesn't offer that excitement factor. And I really think because of that mobility that he's shown and some of the playmaking instincts that stacked on top of what already was a pretty good pre-snap processor, decent accuracy, like you're working with a lot here with Gardner Minshew. I think the mold here is somewhere in the Case Keenum to Dak Prescott mold. Throw Andy Dalton in there. These decent athletes with decent arms that don't have the physical tools, but if he can really refine his craft, become extremely sharp on the mental aspect of the game, really refine his mechanics, and become as consistently accurate as he possibly can with his potentially lack of arm strength that is going to be the knock on him, you're looking at a guy that, yes, I ranked 27th, but does have a chance in this year to really emerge as a top 20-ish quarterback and be the franchise for this team at least for 2-3 plus years. Now, am I betting on that to happen? I don't know. I don't think I'm going to go that far, especially because I'm not projecting this team as a whole to do very well. And even if Minshew looks pretty good, if this team ends up taking Trevor Lawrence and Minshew sits as a backup for 2 years, we could very much just as easily just see Gardner Minshew kind of fade off. Now, I like Minshew, and I think all of the traits he has that I talked about give him a chance here. And he's actually got some playmakers, especially in this receiving room, that I think do give him a chance, and I like the Jay Gruden addition here. So it's really just an interesting year here in Jacksonville. They're going to be a fun team to watch. Minshew really is one of the better underdog narratives of the entire NFL season, but he really is going to have to impress, especially if this team is in a position to draft, say, a Trevor Lawrence, who's just going to bring all of those physical tools to the table on top of the mental aspects that Minshew brings as well. So it won't be easy here. I don't want to say I'm necessarily betting on Gardner Minshew to continue to prove everyone wrong and earn this job, but I certainly don't want to bet against him. He's shown to have that work ethic and leadership that a guy like Dak Prescott has shown in Dallas. Now, the surrounding situation here isn't quite as nice as Dak has had it, but when I really think about it, is Minshew in year 2 much different than Dak was in year 2? Not really. So it's going to be really interesting to see play out. Right now, I do rank him 27th, though. Then you got Mike Glennon, Josh Dobbs, career backups behind him. Do keep an eye on Jake Luton. There's not a ton to say about him. I did think he showed a pretty nice processor, some decent accuracy, actually used his feet a little bit for a more pocket passing guy. I think this team saw some pretty similar traits that they liked in Gardner Minshew coming out of Oregon State. So probably not going to be anything there. I do expect him to at least make this roster as the third quarterback. If he emerged as QB2, I wouldn't be stunned, but probably just a career backup unless he's magically another Minshew here. But usually these 6th-round picks don't really turn into much. So let's talk about the running back room. I don't like to spend a ton of time on running back because it ultimately just doesn't matter all that much, but this is a group that is hurting at the running back position. So you've got Leonard Fournette, who I'm personally just kind of fed up with. I'm done. I'm tired of seeing him tweet about things and complain about his situation as if he's some, NFL superstar. He's just not. He's not as good as he thinks he is. He can't stay healthy. He doesn't contribute in the receiving game. Maybe if he was in a situation like Dallas or Baltimore where there's great offensive line and a great power run game, he would be a more consistently productive player. That's just not the case here. He's fine. He's a starting caliber, 2 down back. but he's a 20th century back. He's not really fit to play in a spread RPO shotgun offense where you need your running back to be able to catch the ball and make guys miss after the catch. It's just not Leonard Fournette. So I don't think he's long for this team. If he ended up getting cut or traded before the season started, not only would that not surprise me, but I don't think it would move the needle if I breathed on the needle. Like, it literally would do nothing if Leonard Fournette just disappeared here. You do have Chris Thompson. I liked him when he was healthy, but at this point he's back-to-back years just has completely fallen apart from injuries. It's not just can he stay healthy, but if he is healthy, does he still have the same burst? It seems pretty unlikely. He seems like a pretty non-factor here, but I do like him if he were to stay healthy. Would honestly probably be the most impactful running back in this room if he could stay healthy. I think his skill set really plays well with Gardner Minshew. I think it's best to give him as many short to intermediate targets as possible, especially when the drop-off after those two is even more severe. You got Raquel Armstead, who just couldn't really take the bull by the horns last year, a shifty back, 5th-round pick in 2019. He would really need to take a step up to be a factor here. He's just a guy. Divine Ozigbo. Do keep an eye on James Robinson. Was a super productive Illinois State running back with some speed. Quite frankly, might have the best chance to be a 3-down back out of anyone in this whole group. We've seen undrafted guys pull that off. I'm not going to say it will happen, but do keep an eye on him. I think of this undrafted group, he's the guy that might make the team here. This team, to me, really needs to look at the free agent market. I don't know if it's an Isaiah Crowell or who it might need to be, but I do think this is a team that should be looking to add a veteran to help this running back group that ranks 31st. Now let's talk about the wide receivers. I like this wide receiving group. They do rank 23rd because of the lack of a true number one difference maker, but I do like the combination of skill sets. I think it's going to really help out Minshew. So it starts with DJ Chark, who really proved me wrong as a legitimate deep threat in this league. Even beyond that, surprised with his ability to pair with Gardner Minshew as that deep threat, who, Minshew doesn't have the strongest arm. You wouldn't think of him as this efficient deep ball passer, but they made it work last year. And I expect some of that to continue. Is he going to be as productive as he was last year with more weapons in here in a second season? I'm probably going to bet against that happening. I do think he's a really good kind of number 2 option for your offense and that true deep threat. I wouldn't say he's proved enough to me to say he's a number 1 wide receiver. He has that potential, and maybe they get there this year. But I look at him in that kind of Deshaun Jackson caliber number 2 deep threat. So I like him. Really good year last year. Dede Westbrook has never really emerged as a number 2 receiver. Probably a number 3. I love his route running. I love his athleticism, but has always just been missing a little bit. Now, if he could get consistently high-level quarterback play, certainly a guy with the talent to be a number 2 guy, something like an Emmanuel Sanders, but just hasn't been able to grab that quite yet. And then they bring in Laviska Shenault. Excellent pick in the 2nd round. I can't think of a much better landing spot where he can come in and really almost be a focal point. Not the focal point, but a focal point of this offense. Because I talked about Chark being that deep ball guy, and Minshew's kind of lack of arm talent to consistently hit those deep balls. He was relatively accurate in that field last year. I don't expect that to be something that this team should lean on for the future. I think Minshew's going to be at his best when he can, at first utilize the short to intermediate passing game and really let his playmakers take some of that load off of Minshew. And I look at Laviska Shenault as a guy that can be that, run RPOs, bubble screens, jet sweeps, even line up in the backfield to start over some of these crappy running backs and just rack it up. Think of Cordarrelle Patterson with really good hands. That's what Laviska Shenault is. Now, he needs to stay healthy, but I love the combination of skill sets you have there 1 through 3. You got your deep threat in Chark. You have your kind of number 2 route runner guy that you need to keep an eye on Dede Westbrook, and Laviska Shenault, who you need to know where he is pre-snap, because if you don't have bodies on him, he's going to make a guy miss and take it 10 to 15 yards and really become a headache. So I love the combination. You don't have your true difference maker, your true number 1 guy that keeps defensive coordinators up at night necessarily here. That's why they rank 23rd. And And the depth after that, you got Keelan Cole, Chris Conley. They're decent depth. I'm perfectly fine with them as your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. That's nice. The tight end room here is just not very good. They do sign Tyler Eifert. I'm not hedging anything on him, let alone staying healthy. But if he is healthy, being much of a factor here, even when healthy, he's just kind of a guy at this point in his career. Decent blocker, decent hands, physical player, but doesn't bring a ton to the table. Josh Oliver, a third-round pick last year that I thought was one of the worst picks in the entire draft, needs to take a massive step up here if he's even going to see playing time. He doesn't block, he doesn't run routes, he doesn't have great hands. All he really is a track guy that can run fast in a straight line. So he needs to figure a lot out. You got James O'Shaughnessy here, who's a kind of high floor, low ceiling, decent sort of do-it-all tight end, I guess, but no one of huge note. They draft Tyler Davis. I'm honestly not overly familiar with him in the 6th round. Ben Ellefson, an undrafted free agent. So really not much to speak of in the tight end room, honestly, unless Tyler Eifert really bounces back. I also do need to go back and talk about Colin Johnson, Terry Godwin, CJ Board. One of these guys is going to make the team. Colin Johnson, a big kind of star from Texas, 6'6" wide receiver. Honestly, I think he's best off making a full conversion to tight end. I don't think he's got the athleticism to separate at wide receiver, but if you played him at tight end, had him put on 15 pounds, I could get intrigued. So I'm curious to see what they do with him. They did spend a 5th round pick on him, but not someone I'm overly high on. And Terry Godwin was a productive slot receiver in college. So I think those two guys would be the depth to keep an eye on. So 23rd for the receiving group, but I will say that it's a great combination of skill sets that's going to be well deployed by Jay Gruden and going to make things nice on Gardner Minshew and give him a chance to prove some of those things we were talking about. But let's talk about the offensive line here. This is another reason I'm not overly excited about DJ Chark and Minshew kind of reconnecting for a really nice, 1,100-yard season again. Not only does Minshew just not have the best arm, it's going to be difficult for him to be consistent with that deep ball placement, but you need time to connect on those, and this tackle duo to begin with is just one of the worst in the league. Jawan Taylor's had an okay rookie year, 2nd round pick. Some people thought him as a 1st round guy. I do expect him to be a little better in year 2, but not someone that's overly reliable. And then at left tackle, there's really no way around it. Cam Robinson's one of the worst starting tackles in the league. This team didn't do a whole lot to upgrade that position. They did draft Ben Bartch in the 4th round, did play left tackle in Division III football at St. John's. Most people, myself included, kind of think he projects better as a guard. I do think Bartch is going to push AJ Can, and then push Cam Robinson at left tackle. I think he's going to push along with Will Richardson as kind of depth, but no one I'm too excited about emerging as some capable left tackle, which is going to be a hindrance and lower the floor on this offense. Lower the floor and the ceiling, really. And then on the interior, you're in pretty good shape. I love Linder and Norwell. Excellent duo. And then AJ Can at right guard. He's been there for a while. He's just a guy, though. He's fine. I do like that you have the continuity here. It's the same group as last year. A lot of times these guys, when they play that many snaps together, they do take a step up. I don't know if it's the right players in place to really do that, but the strategy is sound. They are going with the same unit. In theory, they should develop together. It's just a question of how much. So I don't think it's a miserable offensive line. It's, one of those lines that it's just going to kind of get in people's way. It's not going to maul dudes. There are going to be moments of weakness, but it's not like a massive liability either. So 24th for the offensive line. The offense as a whole, 27th. There's a lot of aspects of this offense that I like, and I think there's a lot of potential for this team to get up into, I don't think they'll ever be a top half offense, but I think they can be a functional, 24 points a game, like a 20th to 18th offense in the league. I think Minshew has a chance to take that step up and become a top 20 quarterback, and for these receivers to click, for the offensive line to develop, for Jay Gruden to be a really creative coordinator. There's a lot of moving pieces here, and you'd really be going out on a limb to say it's all going to click, but I think they've made the right moves to at least have a chance for that to happen. And that's a big reason why I feel like this team is not a traditional 32nd ranked team. I think they've really got some potential and upside for this season. at least on the offensive side of the ball. Now, unfortunately for Jags fans, we do have to talk about this defense. This is far and away the reason this team is ranking 32nd. They're kind of living on the heels of what was a superb, historic defense in 2017, trying to rebirth that, and to be straight up, like, it's just not going to happen this year. There's too much youth. There's too many missing pieces. There's too many moving pieces. The coaching here, like Doug Marrone, what does he truly bring to the table? Is he an offensive or defensive guy? Todd Wash, a defense coordinator? Like, just simply put, this defense is a bit of a mess right now. There's some nice players here that we're going to run through, but man, this team has honestly reached a point where if they're going to make any noise next year, I do think it has to be with the offense, and Gardner Minshew in this unit really surprising, because I just don't picture this defense being anything more than slightly below average. But let's go through it here, starting with the run defense. Now, this team really struggled against the run last year, and a lot of Jags fans were like, draft Derek Brown, sign a bunch of expensive D tackles, like really invest in stopping the run. That's really not how you win in 2020. And I've applauded this team for some of the other things they've done in the front office. I think another thing they really did well here was on the interior defensive line. They recouped some talent here, but you did it the way that you're supposed to do it in the modern NFL. Cheap budget free agents, mid-round picks, guys like Devon Hamilton, not spending a bunch of money, not investing high draft capital, because in reality, playing good run defense is, I can't put a great number on it, but I don't know, 85, 90% about just coaching, scheme, effort, technique. Now, those things are all very much a question mark still with this coaching staff that we mentioned, but they did an excellent job bringing in the bodies that you do need to have to play good run defense. So it usually starts with the interior when you want to talk about run defense. You got Avery Jones, who was not a problem last year. He's still a very good run defender, but he's got more talent around him now. I love the Al Woods signing. Rodney Gunter, just strong, beefy veterans that are going to play with the discipline you need. And the same thing with Devon Hamilton, who coming out of Ohio State, a third-round pick. Like we said, that's exactly where you want to draft run-defending interior guys, no earlier than the third round. So a great approach there, but basically a veteran coming out of Ohio State, a polished run defender. So the bodies on the interior are much better. Notice we didn't mention Taven Bryan as an interior run defender. This is still that cover 3 Seattle scheme that they're trying to rejuvenate here. That said, Taven Bryan being more of that bigger body defensive end, 3-tech defensive tackle hybrid type. I do foresee Bryan making an impact in run defense. This is a total breakout year for him. We'll talk even more about him when we talk about the pass rush here. But Josh Allen, first round rookie last year, was actually stunningly good against the run. Putting on a little weight, looking really sizable after being a bit of a hybrid linebacker edge guy in college. But I think in year 2, he's really a focal point of the upside of this team. But I like the pieces on this D-line to really take a step up. Like I said, they were one of the worst run defenses in the league last year, and they still need to kind of figure out how to coach these guys up and get them to play cohesively. Do I have a ton of confidence in this coaching staff to pull that off? No, not really, but I believe in the players a lot more this year. You also have Joe Schobert, was an excellent linebacker signing. That second linebacker next to Miles Jack really just wasn't a weapon for them last year at all. They had a bunch of moving pieces there with the surprising Telvin Smith sort of retirement deal. Now, that's the run defense. It ranks 24th. They were like almost dead last year. I think they'll be much better this year. They've done a good job to address it. But they didn't over-invest in it either, which I really like. So let's talk about the pass rush here. And notice we haven't even mentioned Yannick Ngakoue yet. That's because I don't foresee him playing for this team next year. It's just a toxic relationship between him and the organization right now. I do think he gets traded for a second-round pick or sits out the year. Something's going to happen. I don't think Yannick Ngakoue is going to suit up for the Jags this year. If he does, it would change some of this conversation, but I strongly believe he will not be a Jaguar in September. So the pass rush starts with Josh Allen, who was excellent as a rookie. Really, really good. Is he a number 1 guy yet? No, he's just not, but he's really good. He's probably at some point going to become a quote-unquote number 1 edge player. I just don't think he's there quite yet in 2020. I still think he's a very high-end number 2, like a 60 pressure, 10-11 sack guy, like a really, really good starter. I like Josh Allen. Maybe he exceeds those expectations. I just find that a little unlikely. And then you have K'Lavon Chaisson, a really raw, talented, promising young first-round pick out of LSU who he didn't produce a lot at LSU. He has a lot to learn. Now, I will say his skill set is virtually identical to Yannick Ngakoue. Not just his size at like 6'3", 250, but the explosiveness, the power with a long arm technique. Like, I think that Chaisson and Allen in 2022 we'll be talking about as a top 5 or so edge duo. But in 2020, I'm really not prepared to say that. And after that, especially on the interior, it's really not pretty. So Taven Bryan is the only guy on the interior that you're looking at and saying, can he take that step up? A first-round pick in 2018. So you now have 3 first-rounders on this D line. Obviously, a lot of athleticism, a lot of explosiveness and upside with this pass rush. Do they get there in 2020, though? That's the big question. And Taven Bryan has been crazy inconsistent since he got here. He's still kind of a positionless player at this point. Is he a D end? Is he a D tackle? He just simply put needs to figure it out this year. I think it's very much a prove-it year for Taven Bryan. And then, the D tackles that we mentioned, they clearly were focused on run defenders because Avery Jones, Devon Hamilton, Rodney Gunter, these guys aren't going to be rushing the passer. They do have some talent and depth at edge. So you got Dwayne Smoot, who's a fine, rotational piece out of Illinois. It's a contract year for him. Could he kind of take a step up now with Yannick gone, with Campbell gone, getting more playing time, kind of showing some of that upside that I do think he had coming out of Illinois? Definitely keep an eye on him. Could be one of those kind of sneaky rotational guys that comes in and gets 7-8 sacks and then gets paid a decent amount in free agency. I do like Dwayne Smoot. You got Aaron Lynch they brought in for veteran depth, big power rusher to kind of play that Calais Campbell role for them. And then Cassius Marsh, who's very familiar with this Seattle scheme. He's played for every team in the league at this point. And Laurenti McRae, just some crafty veteran depth. So it's not a bad pass rush, just the upside, it's there for the future. For 2020, is it going to be some crazy pass rush? It could if everything clicks, but I find that pretty unlikely. So 24th for pass rush, 24th for run defense. They're going to rank 12th for the linebackers here. So you got Miles Jack, who's really steady, hasn't quite kind of taken that next step to being more of a consensus top 10 linebacker, but he's really solid. He's a top 16 starter or so at linebacker. He flies to the ball, super athletic, good in man coverage. If there's a knock on him, it's that he's a little over-aggressive. He really, bites the cheese on play action. But that's why the signing of Joe Schobert here is a great compliment, because Schobert is super disciplined, has length, plays play action really well, has excellent understanding of route recognition, is a really good zone cover linebacker. Whereas I don't know if you can necessarily say the same things about Miles Jack. Very different players, but I love the combination of skill sets. So those are your starters there, right? 2020, it's nickel is the new base. But when this team does go traditional 4-3 base defense, it's going to be a rotation / competition of Leon Jacobs, Quincy Williams, and 4th round pick this year, Shaquille Quarterman. All very different roles, and they're all going to play different positions in this rotation. So you got Quincy Williams is kind of that Telvin Smith safety, weak side linebacker hybrid. Quarterman is the true middle linebacking, thumping, stack, shed, light up the running back, light up the fullback, your traditional middle linebacker. And then Leon Jacobs is that kind of hybrid under linebacker, a guy that's going to rush the passer a little bit, play a little coverage, a little bit of everything. Really good athlete, has kind of showed some flashes here. Definitely kind of a prove-it type of situation for him this year. And then you even have Joe Giles Harris, Dakota Allen, some good athletic. Well, Allen's not a great athlete, but he's a really instinctive player. But you got some really good depth here in this linebacking room. Might not be the most top-heavy, but it's certainly one of the deepest linebacking groups in the entire league. So I like what they have at the linebacker spot. It's definitely the best room for 2020 on this team. Now we got to talk about the secondary, and this is the heaviest weighted position group for the defense, and this is one of the worst secondaries in the league. There's really no way around it. You got C.J. Henderson is the number 1 corner here. How does he look as a rookie after an inconsistent year at Florida? I think he'll be solid, but just like all rookie corners, he's going to have some inconsistencies. Just like he showed at Florida, like he's a really good athlete. He's a great scheme fit. I think he's going to reach a point of being one of the better corners in this league. He's not exactly among other first-round corners a guy that I'm like, oh yeah, plug him in. He's going to be a rock star year one. He's not Denzel Ward. He's not Marshawn Lattimore or like Jeff Okudah this year. He's a guy that did get beat quite a bit in college, and he's a great athlete. I think he gets there, but again, just like Caleb on Chesson, Josh Allen, some of these younger guys, it's like maybe not for 2020. But then after him, it's like just mess. So you have Rashaan Melvin probably set to start as the other outside corner. That is far, far from ideal. He's a guy that should be like your fourth corner that plays in the event of injury. DJ Hayden, Josiah Scott. Going to be a competition in the slot. I think the best case scenario for Jacksonville is that Scott really impresses, takes over that nickel corner position, being that 5'9", kind of instinctive, really quick athlete. I like Josiah Scott. I don't know what he's going to be as a rookie though, but if he could win that slot job, that would allow them to push DJ Hayden out to the third corner or the outside corner here. Push Melvin down the depth chart. That would be an improvement to the secondary. I don't expect that to happen, though. I think they do go with Henderson, Melvin, and Hayden, at least right away. And then you got nothing after that. You get Trey Herndon, Brandon Watson, Perry Nickerson, Chris Claybrooks, a 7th-round pick this year. It's just not very pretty in the cornerback room. But it's even worse in the safety room right now. You got Gerard Wilson, who actually had a really nice year last year, just not someone I'm super excited about. Like, he showed that he can be a starting caliber free safety in that Earl Thomas role in this defense, but I don't see him becoming much more than he was last year, which is just an okay serviceable player. Probably a guy in a best case scenario is going to be that third safety in a dime rotation that comes in for 2 shell looks in those sub packages. Then you got Ronnie Harrison at strong safety. In theory, he should be really good for that Cam Chancellor role, 6'3", 215, does tackle well, is a big hitter, can take on blocks, but from a coverage standpoint, total liability right now. Has, tight hips, is not very good in man coverage, and doesn't have great route recognition or burst really to play in zone. So what is he really? I honestly think Harrison's best path to success is just fully taking over Telvin Smith's role as the weak side linebacker here. I just don't think he has much of a future as a safety. Maybe he proves me wrong, but to this point in his career really has not shown any of that stuff you look for from a coverage player. And then the depth behind him, you got Andrew Wingard, an undrafted free agent last year that I did like, just lacks some of those athletic traits. Josh Jones in his third team in 2 years, athletic linebacker safety hybrid guy. He's going to push with Quincy Williams, with Ronnie Harrison for this role, but a guy that just hasn't shown the work ethic that is required to become a player in the NFL. The 2 guys that I actually would be partially intrigued by here at strong safety, Daniel Thomas was a really good pick in the 5th round. Flies to the ball, one of the better tackling safeties in this class. Does have some pretty major question marks as far as coverage, but I actually think he might be a better player right away than Ronnie Harrison at strong safety. Probably not going to start right away, but I could see him taking that strong safety position. I thought that was an excellent pick and a great scheme fit. So I do like Daniel Thomas if he can emerge, but he's a 5th-round pick. And then you have J.R. Reed. I had a 3rd to a 4th-round grade on J.R. Reed. He ends up being an undrafted free agent here. He's 6'1". He's not slow. He's not super fast, but he's a really good athlete with size and length. Really sound, steady free safety. Maybe never going to be a high-end playmaker just because he lacks some of that burst and true range, but he does make up for some of that range with his length. So, if we're sitting here week 15 and the Jags are actually starting undrafted free agent J.R. Reed and 5th-round pick Daniel Thomas at strong safety, let's just say you heard it here first. But right now, I'm just not excited about this secondary at all. They rank 29th. Not a surprise when the only starter among 5 guys left from that 2017 secondary is DJ Hayden, who's your slot corner. So just not a good secondary at all. And there's your roster recap. So defense as a whole comes in 30th. Like I mentioned, this team has some pieces. I like some of the moves they've made. Their draft picks I thought were really good on that side of the ball. but it's pretty rare for a rookie class to really come together on a defense this thin and just make everything click. I think if this team is going to make any noise, it's going to have to be as some crazy underdog wild card story like the Titans last year, where they sneak in with 9 wins or whatever, and Gardner Minshew is just going off, because I just don't think that on the defensive side of the ball they have enough to put this all together, and it's not a coaching staff that I really trust to pull it off either. And that's really why they come in 32nd here. But let's wrap up and take a look at the schedule here. How many wins are we talking about here? So their over-under is 4.5 wins, which is the lowest in the NFL. So my rankings in sync with how Vegas thinks right now. And actually, it's a really tough schedule. They got to play the NFC and AFC North this year, along with the fact that their own division, you're looking at 2 playoff teams from last year with Tennessee and Houston, and Indianapolis really poised for a good year this year as well. So almost no easy wins on the schedule at all. You got Miami at home week 3. I think they can win that. And then I also gave them a win at interdivision against Tennessee, but really difficult to look at the schedule and say that there's other teams that they're going to beat. They could beat the Bengals at home. They could beat Chicago at home. They could beat Detroit at home. So maybe that's how they get to 5. They could beat Cleveland at home. But again, it's really going to take that being on the shoulders of Gardner Minshew. I just think the lack of pass rush and coverage combination is really going to hurt this team, and the lack of high-end coaching and culture here. It's a team that, quite frankly, with a tough schedule, as much as I like Gardner Minshew and I would love to watch this team go on a run, there's few teams in the league that I would enjoy watching more. Prove me wrong on this prediction. I just am not going to pick that to happen. I just don't see the talent in shape here. But there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic here as well. I think that this team at least had one really good offseason. And that's saying a lot for a front office that's been completely miserable year after year after year. So perhaps some of these new leadership changes that they've made is going to send this team in the right direction. And if this is the result of the Jags season, you might be looking at Trevor Lawrence as the future franchise quarterback here for the Jags, which would completely change the future outlook of this team. So that is going to do it. That is our first deep dive. That was super fun to record. Please, guys, drop a like down below. Also leave a comment. Do you think the Jags are the worst team in the league heading into 2020? Do you think it's someone else? I'll try to look at every single comment, so drop that down below. This was super fun. I'm looking forward to revealing number 31. But until then, cheers. We'll see you later.